everybody, what is going on, the Catch fam? It is Steven here, about to break down the wide receiver must starts for week 3. We had a pretty wild week 2. A lot of receivers performed, and we're going to try to track and hunt down some of the guys that are going to blow up again this week. For starters, my number one guy to be watching on the boards this week is Cooper Kupp, wide receiver for the LA Rams, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm repping him today, even though I got the retro old jersey. Those new Rams jerseys, they do look clean. They might be on my shopping cart for Christmas this year. But Cooper Kupp, guys, I mean, this guy is eating breakfast with Matt Stafford every morning. He has got 10 plus targets each game at 32 points. This is a half PPR league that I'm in, by the way, guys. So all the stats that you do see on this video is going to be half PPR based, right? So the Cooper Kupp is kind of filled every single role in this Rams offense because of his unique chemistry with Matt Stafford. He is both the PPR machine of this team, but also the touchdown and the yak guy as well. So in the past years, we've seen Robert Woods and him kind of split it up, but this year it looks like Cooper Kupp is really pushing for a top 5, top 10 receiver finish here. And I'm excited for it too because he's one of my favorite receivers in the league. Going up against Tampa Bay, I could understand why there would be hesitancy to start him, right? Tampa Bay's defense, it's known, it's notorious as being one of the best defenses in all of football. Guys, we have to understand their secondary has been shredded this year due to injuries. And if you think about it, in week 1, Dallas lit them up. And in week 2, Atlanta had a great game passing too, outside of like the 2 pick sixes at the end, but we don't really care about that. If you're a receiver owner, we just care about are the receivers able to do their work. And Matt Ryan was able to move the ball down the field against them. Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts were able to eat. So I see Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods having a good opportunity here, but especially Cooper Kupp just because of that serious chemistry he's been able to pull together with Matt Stafford. Number 2, we have DJ Moore. I love DJ Moore's upside Thursday night against the Texans. I mean, DJ Moore, week 1 had like a 25-30% target volume, was not able to really muster up much. He did get 12 points, right? But some people were like, man, is this going to be the typical DJ Moore? Because he's been right there, right? He is on superstar cusp. Once he touches the ball, he can go 0 to 100 faster than maybe any other receiver in the league outside of, the few notable guys like Hollywood Brown and Tyreek Hill, right? But this guy's explosive, and this Panthers offense is improved. And going up against the Texas, I love that matchup. I mean, yeah, they are improved as to what our original projections were going to be for this Texans team, this Texans defense. They're able to create some turnovers. I mean, they've been able to do it in week 1 and 2, but I still like the value that DJ Moore is going to be able to give you here. I think he's going to be able to eat up against this Texans team. And I mean, honestly, what we're seeing is that with CMC added to the offense, he's kind of taking away all of Robbie Anderson's real volume that he saw last year. And DJ Moore is now both the PPR guy and the deep threat. So he had 17 last week, 12 the week before. I think we're going to see him get a touchdown here and probably crack 100 yards for the first time, too. Up next, we got one of my favorite receivers in the league, CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. He's been very consistent week 1 and 2 for this Cowboys offense, despite the Cowboys really shitting the bed in week 2 against the Chargers. That was kind of a miserable game to watch. I thought that was going to be a much more explosive game. It was, maybe we can chalk it up to this Chargers defense being better than people expected, but CeeDee Lamb has only been able to get 1 touchdown so far this year. I think against the Eagles, we're going to really get a chance to see CeeDee Lamb have his breakout performance. Debo Samuel just ate up against the Eagles in week 2. I think that this secondary on the Philadelphia Eagles is a lot worse than what the Chargers and the Buccaneers have. So CeeDee Lamb is not only going to be aided by that, but there's also the news that has been more and more circulating that Amari Cooper is less and less likely to play in week 3. And even if he does play, I mean, his ribs are banged up. He's got Jerry Jones saying that he's not that healthy. So if CeeDee Lamb sees, even more volume than he already is, I think that could spell for a great, great game. I mean, 9 targets on 81 yards, that's already amazing. If we could see even more than that on a consistent basis, CeeDee Lamb's ceiling is really the roof, guys. Next, one of the best receivers in all of football, who was the most inconsistent guy over the past couple of years, Tyler Lockett has completely changed up his game frame. Now he's a guy who's getting 11 targets. I mean, that's just not something that we were expecting coming into the draft. Although I will say, John and I in our mock drafts were highlighting more and more of Tyler Lockett shares to go out and get this guy where you could get him in your drafts because the Seattle Seahawks over the offseason really wanted to place an emphasis on getting the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands early, and that really benefits a guy like Lockett who can do a lot in short amount of space. But also Tyler Lockett just has this like effect he puts on the safeties in the secondary, right? Somehow, some way, he is able to burn a safety every game and just get deep for like 70 yards, right? And now he's going up against the Vikings defense who has gotten burned by Jamar Chase in week one, and they just got absolutely shredded every single which way against the Arizona Cardinals in week two. So I think Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are all going to have big games, but I just like Tyler Lockett's ability this season. I think he's going to be one of the better receivers. And the main part of that is because 24, 27, these are going to be more consistent than they were the past years where he'd have like 140-point game and then he'd go 0-0-0. But I definitely like his upside against Minnesota this week. Another guy here that we are going to be talking about in the same game, just on the opposite team, Justin Jefferson. I think this is a guy who's had a very quiet but good year. I really feel like I haven't heard too much about Justin Jefferson. I think he's getting a little overshadowed by guys like Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne, who's really kind of emerged as a great slot receiver. And while those two I think are going to be really good options as well, I'm just looking for a Justin Jefferson breakout here, right, guys? He had 10 targets last week, was able to turn it into 65 and a touchdown. Nothing to sneeze at. Still a great performance, was able to put up 15 points. But I think this game is going to be a situation where both teams are kind of shooting it out with each other. And I just like Jefferson to show why he is the true alpha on this offense, right, guys? And then another guy who has just been able to prove that he is better than maybe where we put him in past times, Mike Williams going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be a lights out burner. At least that's my predictions. I will say there is the chance that this gets slowed down because I think this Chargers defense is a little bit better than we were originally baking in coming into the season. But I mean, the fact that Mike Williams is now seeing the target volume that he is, 10 targets for 91 and a touchdown, he is seeing a bigger target percentage than guys like Keenan Allen on this roster. So that is something I don't think anybody was really expecting. But if Mike Williams stays healthy, he's one of the best receivers rest of the season for sure because he's so talented. And he's putting up a touchdown each week, which signals to me that this is a guy that Justin Herbert is looking for in the red zone. And I think there's going to be a lot of touchdown opportunity this week against Kansas City. And that's why Justin Herbert's one of the guys I'll be talking about in my quarterback video. But Mike Williams, I think this is a big week for him. He was a must-start candidate last week. I don't see a reason to take him off my board this week either. Guy who was on my board last week as well, just turned out that I was playing against him. So every time that I was happy about my prediction, I ended up still getting burned, right? Debo Samuel, he's been kind of like the 1, 2, and 3 for this 49ers receiving core. He's been great. Week two, he was able to put 13 up. So I'm going to take that as a success. He's been absolutely magnificent this season so far. Brandon Ayuk is still proving to not come back yet. And honestly, until Brandon Ayuk proves me wrong, I'm not going to be plugging him into my lineups. But I like Debo Samuel's value for the rest of the year, especially coming up against the Green Bay Packers. This is going to be a game where we're going to have to see these offenses shoot out with each other because neither defense is proven to be that elite. And we saw Aaron Rodgers prove against Detroit in week two that, this is week one might have been a fluke, right, guys? A-Rod's back. He's hungry. He's going to come back for vengeance against his 49ers team, too. He still remembers when in that NFC Championship game when the 49ers ran shit wild all over this Packers team. So I expect there be a lot of opportunity for Debo Samuel to get catches and move against this Packers defense, which got shredded by the Detroit Lions, right? Quintez Cephas and this Lions team, which I think has a lot less talent than the 49ers team, really ate up against this Packers secondary. And the Packers secondary obviously got beat up week one against the Saints and with Jameis Winston. So um, I'm very excited about Debo Samuel's opportunity here for a bigger game, potentially seeing around the same amount of yards, right? Around that 100-yard mark. Might see another touchdown opportunity as well. Marquis Brown, wow, is he finally starting to come into his own? 16 points week one, 20 points week two. Was really one of the big difference makers for the Ravens to get that win against the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw Lamar Jackson just loft up a real bomb up to him. It was kind of like a little jump pass toss. I'm excited for Marquise Brown. This was one of my favorite players coming out of Oklahoma, just for his absolute electric speed. I thought he mimicked a guy like Tyreek Hill, but I think he's got really good route running ability. They just need to continue working him into this team. He's a relative of Antonio Brown, one of the best receivers in all of football. And honestly, I think Marquise Brown, if he can stay healthy and keep learning the system, could really emerge as one of the more consistent, better receivers, right? And that's what we're seeing this year. The Ravens are focusing less on guys like Mark Andrews, the tight end, which has been the main target volume hog for this offense, and starting to flock it out to the receivers a little bit, right? And Marquise Brown has been the biggest beneficiary. And going up against this Detroit defense, man, I love that. We have seen receivers feast on the Lions all year long, and I don't see that changing. While I love the grit and the hunger of this Lions team, it's not a joke to me that the Ravens are going to come in here and they're going to beat them up pretty good. I do think it's going to be a fun game. We've seen a lot of fun games with the Lions so far, but Marquise Brown's going to have an opportunity for at least one or two big plays, and I'm expecting him to hit on those opportunities as well, guys. Sterling Shepard, probably the complete opposite player of a guy like Marquise Brown. Somebody that in past drafts I would have just loved to have on my team. He's kind of like that Jarvis Landry-esque, right? I don't know if you've watched any Giants game, you just keep hearing the name Sterling Shepard, Sterling Shepard, Sterling Shepard, because it seems like every damn play Daniel Jones is throwing it to him. Kenny Galladay drops every fucking pass, and Kadarius Toney, who knows if he's ever going to play, right? Evan Ingram's coming back from injury. I'm not really expecting too much there, but if Daniel Jones isn't running the ball for 100 yards, he's throwing it to Sterling Shepard, and Sterling Shepard cannot drop a pass, right? Week one against Detroit, which is a great defense, puts up 20. Week two against Washington, great defense, puts up 13. Now he's going up against Atlanta, which is a terrible defense. I see Sterling Shepard really eating up the zone coverage here. And if they put some man corners on him, I see him also eating up there too, right? The Falcons also had an injury with AJ Terrell, the cornerback. So Sterling Shepard's going to get the opportunity to make a lot of catches again. And that's going to result in a ton of yards again. I mean, this guy's been Mr. Consistent. Plug him into your lineup and just don't even think about it, guys. That's how Sterling Shepard is developing into this year. Cortland Sutton, finally back, guys. I love Cortland Sutton. We all take a moment of silence to remember Jerry Judy. This is what could have been, right? John's favorite guy coming out of the offseason. Unfortunately, Jerry Judy was lost to injury, put on injured reserve. But man, did that open up an opportunity for guys like Cortland Sutton on this offense. And man, this Broncos team is good. 2-0, looking very explosive on offense, led by Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater has been very consistent at quarterback. And Cortland Sutton saw 9 receptions on 12 targets. 12 targets for a guy, right? And in week one, we understand he didn't play well, right? 1.9 points. Did not really do much of anything, but I would attribute a lot of that to coming back from injury. I think the coaching staff wanted to limit his snaps, limit his reps because they were worried about him doing too much too quickly. They obviously took the reins off of him going up against Jacksonville, and he proved that he's ready to go, right? And this is also an interesting stat here, right? So he had 159 yards on those 12 targets, and he should have had a touchdown too. If you watch the game, there was a just brutal pass interference call that didn't get called on him. And if the guy didn't tug on his jersey, he would have caught it in the end zone. It would have been a score, right? So this could have even been a bigger day for Cortland Sutton. And going up against the New York Jets that just got sliced and diced by the Patriots team, I'm expecting him to have another opportunity at a big game too, right? Maybe not as big as week 2 in Jacksonville. I think this Jets team is pretty sturdy on defense, but I do think there are a lot of opportunities to exploit them on the back end in the secondary. So I do look for a big week out of Cortland Sutton and also a big season out of Cortland Sutton if he can stay healthy. Because guys, let's just remember before the injury, he was one of the top receivers in the league. Talking about another absolute stud at receiver, we got Julio Jones here, guys, right? Week 1 was so disappointing. He had the coaching staff coming out here and talking shit about him, saying that what he was doing on the field was just a stupid move and bad for the team. And I said, guys, listen, I can't put him in my startums until I see that he does it on the field. Well, guess what? We saw him do it on the field in week 2 against Seattle, right? We saw Ryan Tannehill go to him early and often because AJ Brown has not proven to catch the ball this season. I don't know what it is. I think he's just in his head, kind of like Jamar Chase was in the preseason. But Julio Jones is proving to be that PPR guy that John and I thought he was going to be in the beginning of the season, right? So I looked at Julio Jones having another big week in week 3 against Indy. We've seen Indy's defense get shredded against the pass game this season, especially on intermediate to deep type of routes, which Julio is obviously very effective at. Julio Jones, he had 15 points on 100 receiving yards, but he also had that touchdown taken away. And I don't know if anybody saw that touchdown, but I was rooting against Julio because I was playing against him in my week 2 matchup. But I was like, damn, I don't know how the hell that got even taken back. I mean, it was a bull crap call. They should have never taken it away from Julio. But with all that said, guys, I still think there's a ton of touchdown upside for Julio Jones, and it could come this week in that division rivalry matchup against Indianapolis. Another Jones for another AFC South team. We got Marvin Jones, right? Marvin Jones has been very sneaky this year. Going up against Houston week 1, he had 16. Week 2, Denver, he had 14. Very consistent numbers that I would be very happy with. I mean, he's had more than Allen Robinson. He had more than Chris Godwin last week. So better than my wide receivers on my team, right, guys? But going up against Arizona, I could understand maybe some of the hesitancy, right? Arizona's defense is pretty good, but got exploited last week. But I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are probably going to get the shit kicked in real fast and in a hurry. And Trevor Lawrence might see another 40 to 50 attempt kind of game, which means that guys like Marvin Jones and DJ Chark are going to have big weeks, right? I gave the edge to Marvin Jones here because he's been the clear target favorite. 11 targets on 55 yards and a touchdown in week 2. And that's off the back end of, I believe, 10 targets in week 1. So DJ Chark saw a significant drop off. I think he only had 3 or 4 targets in week 2. So it's very clear that the chemistry that Trevor Lawrence and Marvin Jones had in preseason is carrying over to the regular season. And I look to Marvin Jones to having another big week coming up against Arizona. This last receiver here, guys, this is mostly someone to keep an eye on, not necessarily a must start unless you're in a deep league. I would start him in a 12 plus league, especially if Deontay Johnson's injury progresses. Just full disclosure, this is Tuesday. And as of late, we have noticed that Deontay Johnson is hurt, but he potentially still might go. But I think if Deontay Johnson goes, he's still not 100%. And we have seen whenever Deontay isn't the guy to receive that target volume, it's Juju Smith-Schuster, right? But he's also the guy that's going to be seeing the volume in the red zone too. So going up against the Cincinnati Bengals is obviously a very favorable matchup. But I think Juju Smith-Schuster has a big game here. He's always done well against the Bengals. They hate each other. They hate Juju, and he knows it. And he comes in there, he wears it on his sleeve, and he brings 100% every single time. And I think Juju Smith-Schuster gets a touchdown here, but also sees a lot of target volume too, right? I mean, 7 targets, but a lot of those came after Deontay went down too. So just keep an eye on this. And if Juju does get the start over a guy like Deontay Johnson, I think he's somebody you can definitely plug and play in your flex spot. And with that said, guys, this is the must start wide receivers on the week. If you enjoyed this video at all, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. And with that said too, we have seen receivers fall, such as Allen Robinson. We've seen receivers rise, like Marquis Brown. If there are any other receivers, that we didn't note in this video, but you think are great plug and plays, please just let us know in the comments, right? Also, if you need any advice on receivers to start in comparison, right? Maybe if you've got guys like Cortland Sutton and Marquis Brown and Mike Williams on your roster, and you're looking for that final decision on who to put in your lineup, just put it in the comments. We will jump on that as fast as possible. We really pride ourselves in trying to be interactive with the Catch fam, guys. And remember, you saw it here first at the Catch.